Hello to everyone on LinkedIn and hello to everyone on YouTube. This is Maria Malik, your corporate speaking coach. So today we're actually going to be talking about strategies for introverts to be able to give better presentations. So some of these tips you might already know, but I think that they need to be explained a little bit better because I see some of you guys doing them wrong. So I'm going to talk about around 6 different things that you need to start doing right away in order to give better presentations, especially if you're an introvert in the workplace. So if you're just joining me, welcome. Again, my name is Maria Malik. I'm a corporate speaking coach. Do say hi in the chat box. Let me know who you are and where you are watching this from. I love going back and checking to see where my lives are reaching and who these lives are helping. So please let me know your name as well as where you are from in the chat box. So before we get started, I do want to let you guys know that I will be hosting a masterclass this Saturday called The 3 Steps to Get Promoted as an Introverted Leader. So you can join the masterclass, grab your seat by going to www.speakatwork.com. You can also go to my profile and there is a direct link just to make it a little bit easier for you. But I love doing these masterclasses, you guys. I love doing them. And I think it's a great way for you guys to interact with me as well, for you to ask me questions as well as learn while you're there. So do join me on my next masterclass and I'll see you there. All right, so let's get started. Corporate introverts, better presentations. What do you do? Now, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is something that you probably already have heard, and that is to practice, practice, practice. But you cannot be practicing the wrong thing over and over again, right? Sometimes when someone says, hey, practice, it's like, okay, let me just keep practicing. I'll get better. You're not going to get better if you're practicing the wrong thing over and over again, right? So you have to, first of all, know what you're doing and make sure that you're practicing correctly. So the best thing to do, the best way to practice, ideally, is to record yourself, okay? Open up Zoom, share your screen so that you can share the presentation and you record yourself and then go back and watch it, because that recording is going to tell you a lot of things about you, especially about what you do with your body language. Like, are you constantly touching your hair like I do? I have a lot of hair, so I'm like constantly fixing my hair. That's something I'm working on. Or do you have like nervous tics? Like some people, when they get nervous, they'll go like this. Some people, if they're holding a pen, they'll constantly go like this. So you need to actually watch yourself and practice in that way, because it's going to tell you a lot about how you're presenting the actual presentation, okay? So you do want to practice, but you want to make sure that you're practicing correctly, okay? And sometimes you're going to have very large presentations. It could be an hour long and you're like, oh, how do I practice this? Like, this is too much. It's too draining, right? So instead of just blindly practicing the whole thing beginning to end, I want you to really focus on the 10 minutes. Because the 10 minutes mark is really when your nerves kind of settle in. So the first 10 minutes, you're a lot more nervous. You don't know what you're going to say, or you start to go blank, or you see all these people watching you. You're like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? But after those 10 minutes, your nerves settle and you're more in control of your emotions and you're more in control of your mind right here. So practice those 10 minutes inside and out. Okay. The last thing that I want to say about practicing is that don't overdo it. I see so many people, they are up until 3 a.m. the night before practicing their presentations. That is a big no, because that way, first of all, you're going to be exhausted the next day. So you're not going to be able to present enthusiastically and bring all of your energy. And on top of that, you're going to feel so much more pressure. Okay. If you're someone, by the way, that does that, where if you have a presentation, you're up like until 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., sometimes even 3 a.m., let me know who you are. I want to know who you are, because I was like that for a very long time. Till the last minute, I was practicing and making changes. And the next day I was exhausted and those presentations never went well. So please do not leave things for last minute. You do want to practice, but have everything done at least 24 hours before, and then stop thinking about it. learn it and just move away from it, because you're going to put so much pressure on yourself the next day and you're not going to do well. Okay. So make sure that you are doing that. Do not leave things for last minute. It's just a bad idea altogether. All right. Now let's move on to the next thing that you should be doing. And that is to use visual aids to help you tell stories and engage your audience. Okay. So when you're giving a presentation, I know it's very easy for you to think that, oh my God, I just have to be doing all of the talking. I just need to keep going, keep everyone engaged. And, they'll be engaged with me talking. But your presentation is 50% about you and 50% about your audience. So you need to be engaging them, right? Instead of putting all that pressure on yourself and saying, oh my gosh, okay, I have to keep going. There's like an awkward silence. I have to just keep going. Instead of doing that, take your time, okay? Tell stories, engage your audience. And the best way to engage your audience is give examples and tell stories. People love stories. If you look everywhere around you, people really, really enjoy storytelling. It's a great way of connecting with your audience. So tell stories and use visual aids to describe these stories. So if you're going to have slides, right? First of all, make sure that you are the presentation. Your slides are not the entire presentation. You should be talking about a lot of things that are not on your slide, right? Your slides should just be there to kind of complement you. Okay. So let's say you do have slides and you decide to tell a story, maybe put up a picture, right? Let's say you're talking about a specific person, have a photo of that person. Or if you're giving an example, like a shocking fact or something statistic, prove that this, have that there on its own, blank, with nothing else there, just that one sentence. Okay. That will leave more of an impact. So use these visual aids to your advantage, tell stories, give lots of examples, and also give lots of statistics. People get rehooked as soon as you give them a statistic. Okay. And you're going to by doing all of this, you're going to be engaging your audience more. Remember, it's not all about you. It's not just you that has to constantly be doing the talking, right? Check in with your audience once in a while. Let me check in with you guys right now. How many of you guys are following along right now? If you are, say yes. And if you're just joining us, say just joining right now. Introduce yourself and let me know where you are from. But if you are someone that also does a lot of presentations, also say yes in the chat box. And again, check in with your audience. It's as simple as that. You can ask them questions. Is everything making sense so far? By the way, you guys, is everything making sense so far? Are you guys still with me? Is there anything I can clarify before I continue? Obviously, this is live and I might not be able to go back and forth with the questions, but when you're doing a presentation, you should be going back and forth with your audience. Don't just sit there and be like, okay, let me just talk for the whole hour. Imagine if you had to sit there and listen to somebody speak for an hour. How exhausting is that? It's not fun. So look at it from your audience's perspective. And of course, sometimes you'll be talking about things that would be kind of hard to pay attention the entire hour for, right? So check in with your audience, tell them stories, engage with them. It will take off some pressure from you, and it will keep your audience a little bit more entertained as well throughout the presentation. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is taking your time. Now, I want to know from you guys, how many of you, when you have to give a presentation, you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm rushing. I'm just trying to get through this so quickly. How many of you feel like you start speaking very fast, right? Let me know in the chat box, because this is a big problem that I see with most people. And you could tell that somebody is nervous just by their pace. If they're speaking very fast, that means they're most likely nervous. Or if they're speaking very fast, they're trying to compensate for something. So you need to take your time when you are speaking slowly. When you speak slowly, you stay more in control of your presentation and you avoid rushing or stumbling over your words. So please take your time, because once you're in control of your emotions, you can think so much more clearly. And if you can think clearly, it's that much easier for you to come up with better structures, for you to come up with better examples, or for you to remember what you had practiced or you initially wanted to talk about in the first place. Okay, so make that a habit. Slow down and speak slowly, even if there's a timer running, even if you're just speaking for 10 minutes and you see the timer, do not let that timer control you. You stay in control. If your emotions are in control, everything up here is also in control. Okay? Okay, let's move on. I'm getting a little too comfortable with these lives. I remember when I first started doing them, I was a little bit nervous. But now as I'm doing them more and more, just like, again, practice makes perfect. I'm getting more and more comfortable with these. So let's move on. But before we do, again, let me invite you guys to my masterclass. You guys, I am hosting a masterclass soon. Do sign up at www.speakatwork.com. I have an entire presentation for you guys where I teach you step by step what to do to overcome your fear of public speaking and to excel at impromptu speaking, as well as what to do with your body language when you're speaking, because body language is very important when it comes to presenting. So if you give a lot of presentations, and if you're an introvert, this is especially for my introverts out there, then join me the coming Saturday, www.speakatwork.com for my live masterclass. All right, let's keep going. Now, we've already talked about kind of slowing down and taking your time when speaking, right? But the next thing that you want to do, and I know most people are very uncomfortable with this, but you kind of have to put yourself in uncomfortable spaces to make things work sometimes. So you need to start adding pauses more effectively. Okay. There we go. That was a pause. So I know most people feel like pauses are very awkward. They also feel like, hey, if I'm pausing, then everyone's just going to look at me and it's going to be weird, right? Not necessarily. Actually, these pauses are very, very powerful. The reason why they're powerful is because when you pause, you're doing two things. Number one, you're allowing yourself to take your time and again, get back in control of your emotions and your thoughts. You're also allowing your audience to really take in the information and process everything before you move on to the next thing. People have very short attention spans. I tell this to all my clients, and I think everywhere you look now, people have shorter and shorter attention spans, and you have to give them the chance to process the information that you are giving them before you move on to the next thing. Because as soon as they feel like, oh my gosh, this is information overload, people shut down, right? You start thinking of other things like lunch, or I wonder what's going to happen on the next episode of The Addams Family Wednesday. Are you guys watching Wednesday, by the way? It's been like one of my favorite shows at the moment. But you start thinking about other things. You start thinking about lunch. That's something I'm always thinking about. Oh my gosh, what am I going to eat next? And guess what? Then I'm not listening, right? Then your audience isn't listening to you. So add those pauses. And when you add those pauses, don't be afraid to make them nice and long. Okay? Do not feel like they're awkward, because they're not. They're actually very powerful. So embrace those pauses. Go very slow. It's okay. Slow down with your pace. Pause, especially when you say something important. If there is something you want your audience to remember, that's when you want to pause. So let me say something very important. For example, you must pause in order for your audience to understand what you are saying. Does that make sense? You see here how there was that little pause in there? I have to kind of work on this sometimes too. I think I get too excited and I want to just keep going, and I notice my pace gets faster. But remember, your audience needs time to process things. So dial it back. Let's slow it down a little bit. Add those strategic pauses. Pausing after making a key point can actually help emphasize the importance of what you're saying. And silence can be a powerful tool for engaging your audience and building suspense, right? So learn to embrace those pauses. All right, let's move on to the next thing. And this is one that I'm actually very excited to talk to you guys about, because I think there's such a big misconception about this. And that is to be yourself when you're presenting. Let me tell you guys a story of one of my clients that I've been working with recently. So when we started working together, when he joined the coaching calls, this person was funny, he was loud, he was, very charismatic. And I was like, oh, cool, this is great. I was excited to see him do kind of his first presentation during our call. So when it was his turn, I was like, all right, let's go. he completely switched, right? It was like the switch went off and he became 100% like professional. He was so serious and he wouldn't move at all. And I was like, this is not you. Like, you're speaking and I know what you sound like because we were just talking a few minutes before, but this is not you, right? You don't have to pretend to be somebody else when you're presenting. You have a natural speaking style. Everyone has their own natural speaking style, and everyone has a personality. Let that personality shine through when you're speaking. Embrace it, okay? And make it part of your presentation. If you're someone that's funny, continue being funny. Continue making those small little jokes. It doesn't mean you're going to be unprofessional. It just means you're still yourself. And isn't it so much easier to show up as yourself? How hard is it to pretend to be somebody else? It takes more effort. It takes more commitment. It takes more, it takes just so many more stages for you to go through to pretend to be somebody else versus, what's up, you guys? I'm going to do this presentation today. You are yourself, right? You can still keep it professional. And the reason why I said there's such a misconception about this is because I know people think like, oh, if I'm in front of C-level executives, like I can't be joking around. I can't be like funny. I can't be myself. I have to like be that perfect, polished version of me. But there's a very fine line that you have to find, right? You have to bring your personality and that polished professional version of you that you think you need to be and find that middle ground. Because of course, we are still at work. You are still giving presentations to important people that you have to obviously maintain a certain level of professionalism, but that does not mean you have to completely be somebody else when you're presenting. Okay. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that I see with people because they think they have to put on the show. And you don't. When you're giving a presentation, you do not have to put on a show. You already know your stuff. It's just a matter of delivering your message effectively. And you can do that best if you are yourself. Okay? So let me know what you think about this. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about practicing and practicing correctly, not just practicing the wrong thing over and over again, practicing correctly. Then using visuals and aids and stories and examples and statistics to engage your audience. Then we talked about taking your time and speaking slowly. Don't worry about time. It's not going to go anywhere. It does go somewhere, but that doesn't mean you have to follow along with it very quickly, right? Pace yourself. Go nice and slow. You're going to be much more in control of yourself, your emotions, and your mind. Then we talked about using pauses and using silence very effectively. Embrace those pauses. They are not awkward. They are powerful, and it gives you more control over what you are saying and allows your audience, of course, to absorb the information much better. Lastly, we talked about being yourself. Do not try to be somebody else. It is so much easier showing up as yourself and presenting. And just one last thing that I want to say to you guys again, you are the presentation. Do not think that your slides have to be so graphical and like beautiful and so in sync with everything. That does not matter as much as you and your style of presenting. That is what's most important. You could have the best graphics. You could pay somebody to put together a presentation for you. You could spend weeks on a presentation that looks great. But if you yourself are not presenting it correctly or not presenting it as yourself and following these things that I've told you, it's going to fall flat. Then the graphics, the fancy stuff, none of that is going to matter, right? People want to just hear the message and understand it. That is more important to them. So work on that first. Then if you have the time, by all means, go ahead and have a nice, fancy presentation slides and whatnot. I try not to focus on those. Instead, I focus a lot more on the connection that I build with my audience, which you should be focusing on more as well. Okay. All right, you guys, that's everything that I have for you. Again, let me know in the chat box who you are, where you are from. Also, let me know if you're watching this live or you're watching the recorded version. I love going back and seeing how many of you guys are seeing this kind of after I go live. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, you guys. Again, this is Maria Malik, your corporate speaking coach. If you have not already, sign up for my masterclass, which is going to be live, and I'm going to be teaching you step by step how to get promoted faster by becoming a better speaker, by being a more confident speaker, especially if you are more introverted in nature. All right. So thank you so much for your time, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.